Let's talk about something we don't say out loud. What happens when you hurt his ego, and suddenly, everything shifts? The warmth is gone. The affection? Withheld. And the silence? It's not just quiet. It's punishment. You didn't scream. You didn't insult. Maybe all you did was speak the truth, maybe even gently. But his face changed. His energy pulled back. You could feel the wall go up. And now, somehow, you're the one chasing after peace. Apologizing for what? You're not even sure anymore. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. So many of us, especially women who've spent years holding families, careers, or broken relationships together, have been conditioned to tiptoe around a man's ego like it's glass. But here's what no one tells you. You don't have to lose yourself just to be loved again. Let's look at the truth. Most men, especially those who rely on control to feel safe, will confuse their ego with their identity. So when you say something real, something like, "I need space," or "That hurt me," or even just, "No, I don't agree," they don't just hear your words. They feel rejection. They feel small. And instead of owning that discomfort, they may punish you for it. Not always with yelling, but with withdrawal. Coldness. That pause before they reply. That sharp look that says, "You've crossed the line." And suddenly, your nervous system goes into overdrive. You start second-guessing. Maybe I was too blunt. Maybe I should have softened it. Maybe I hurt him. Here's the trap. When we feel responsible for their ego, we stop being honest. And when we stop being honest, we lose the kind of connection we actually crave. The deep, adult kind. The kind where love can handle discomfort. Where a man can hear you say, "That upset me," and not crumble or lash out. But we can't build that if we're always tiptoeing around male pride. Now, here's the secret no one teaches us in our 20s, or even in our 50s. A man will only love you deeply after you hurt his ego, if he respects your emotional truth more than his temporary discomfort. Read that again. Love that's real doesn't run from honesty. It may flinch. It may take a breath. But it leans in. Let me tell you a story. A woman I worked with, 67, retired teacher, raised 3 kids mostly on her own, finally started dating again after years of healing from a narcissistic marriage. The man she met seemed kind, intelligent, good at listening. But one evening, over dinner, she shared something vulnerable. "I don't feel safe when someone pulls away instead of talking things through." He got quiet. Too quiet. Didn't say much after that. The next day, barely a text. Now, her old pattern would have kicked in. She would have apologized. Softened it. Maybe even said, "Forget I said anything." But instead, she breathed. Sat with the discomfort. And she texted him this. "I shared something important to me. If that scared you off, that's okay. But I'm not going to silence myself to keep someone close." You know what happened? He called. He admitted that her words did hit a nerve, reminded him of a past failure. But her calm honesty? It made him see her differently. Not as difficult, but as grown. And safe to be real with. Now, it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes, when you speak truth, the wrong ones will leave. But the right ones? The ones capable of love that doesn't shrink when you shine? They lean in. That's the difference between emotional control and emotional capacity. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't have to figure out how to fix his ego. You don't have to perform. You just have to stay true. That alone? It weeds out the ones who want control. And clears the path for the ones who want connection. So if you've ever felt like you lost love just because you were honest. If you've ever wondered, was I too much? Let me say this to you gently. You weren't too much. You were finally just enough for someone who respects truth. And if that truth bruised a man's ego, That's not the end of love. It's the beginning of seeing who he really is. Let's keep going. Because there's more to say about what happens after the silence. What to do when he pulls away, and how to stand in your power without losing your heart. We'll talk about that next. So let's go there. What actually happens after you hurt his ego? You spoke your truth. Maybe calmly. Maybe just a little too direct for his liking. And now, he's quiet. Cold. Or maybe he's being polite, but something feels off. You can feel the air between you shift. He might act like nothing's wrong, but you feel it in your body. The distance. The tension. It's like walking into a room where no one's talking, but everyone's feeling everything. Sound familiar? This is where so many women, especially women who've had to survive emotional manipulation for years, start blaming themselves. You go over the conversation in your head. Did I say it the wrong way? Should I have waited? Maybe I just triggered something I shouldn't have. But here's the truth most people won't say out loud. When a man's ego is bruised by your honesty, it reveals his emotional capacity, not your emotional failure. You're not in charge of managing his pride. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to say something when you feel disrespected. And if your truth makes him uncomfortable, that's not cruelty. That's clarity. But now comes the hard part. Not rescuing him from his own discomfort. Because that's where the old pattern kicks in. The caretaking. The fixing. The I'll make him feel better so I don't lose him. You might be tempted to apologize just to bring things back to normal. Or sugarcoat your truth so it doesn't sting. Or worse, you silence yourself altogether. But silence won't make you feel safe. It just makes him comfortable. Let me gently offer you something different. Next time this happens, when you feel that distance after you've spoken up, try this. Pause. Breathe. And remind yourself, my truth is not an attack. His reaction is not my responsibility. Let that settle in your nervous system. Because here's something you need to know, especially if you've spent your life around emotionally manipulative people. A healthy man, a grown man, will take time to feel his feelings, but he won't punish you for yours. He might step back to process. That's okay. But he won't freeze you out. He won't gaslight you into thinking you were wrong to speak. If he disappears, if he turns cold, if he makes you earn your way back in, that's not love. That's control dressed up in sensitivity. And I know, it can be so confusing. Especially when the man in question was kind, loving, generous, until you spoke a truth that touched his pride. But here's what you need to remember. Real intimacy isn't about keeping the peace. It's about growing through discomfort together. A man who loves you, truly, will want to understand why something hurt you. He might not get it right away. He might even get defensive at first. But he will come back. With humility. With a willingness to see you, not punish you. And when he does, that's when love gets deeper. That's when ego turns into understanding. That's when both of you step into emotional adulthood. Let me give you something to say next time you feel that shift, that silent tension after you've been honest. You can say gently, I know what I said may have felt uncomfortable. But it was true for me. And I shared it because I care, not because I want to hurt you. Simple. Grounded. No guilt. No begging. Just truth with love. And if he can't receive that, if he still makes you feel like you have to shrink to be accepted, that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of his limits. You're not here to teach a grown man how to feel safe with a strong woman. You're here to be that strong woman and let the right people rise to meet you. So if you're walking through one of those silent, emotionally tense moments right now, if you feel like love is slipping away because you dared to speak your needs, let me say this to your heart. You didn't break anything. You just told the truth. And the right man won't run from that. He'll respect it. Maybe even love you more for it, once his ego calms down enough to see clearly. There's still more I want to say about the final shift that happens when you don't chase, don't fix, don't over-explain, and how that actually draws the right kind of man closer. We'll go there in just a moment. So now, let's talk about what happens when you don't chase. When you don't rush in to smooth it over. When you stay steady in your truth, even while his ego's feeling bruised. This is where everything shifts. Because here's what most women were never taught, especially women who were raised to please, to soothe, to keep the peace. You don't build real love by shrinking yourself to make someone else feel powerful. You build love by being emotionally honest, and then staying calm in the silence that follows. That silence? That uncomfortable space where he's sitting with his feelings, and you're tempted to fill the gap? That's not punishment. That's where respect is born, if you let it be. When you stop chasing, you give him the space to feel the loss of your softness. To feel the weight of what your presence actually brings. And if you've always been the one to repair, to reach out, to fix it first, letting that silence stretch can feel terrifying. Like you'll lose him if you don't step in. But here's what most women find when they stop doing that. The men who care, they come back. And they come back with more humility, more tenderness, and more real respect. Because something shifts in them too. They start realizing that your honesty doesn't mean rejection. It means depth. It means you care enough to be real. And more than that, they start to see that love isn't something you manipulate through guilt or control. It's something you grow through truth and emotional safety. Let me tell you what emotional safety feels like, especially for a woman who's been in toxic or manipulative relationships. It feels like not walking on eggshells. Not second-guessing your every word. Not apologizing just for existing. It feels like being heard. Even when your truth makes someone uncomfortable. Even when it stings a little. And it feels like being loved, not because you're easy, or quiet, or always agreeable. But because you're real. You're not here to coddle fragile egos. You're here to connect, deeply, truthfully, soulfully. And I want to say this, especially if you're over 60 and still learning how to trust yourself again. It's not too late. It's not too late to show up in your relationships with clarity. It's not too late to ask for what you need. It's not too late to be loved, not for your silence, but for your strength. You've lived enough life to know what doesn't work. And now, it's your time to step into what does. So the next time you say something that touches a man's pride, and he pulls away, remember this. You don't have to chase him. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to shrink. You get to breathe. You get to stay steady. You get to let him come toward you, not because you made him feel big, but because he finally saw you. Fully. Honestly. The whole, emotionally mature, wise, radiant woman that you are. You don't win love by managing someone's emotions. You win love by standing in your truth and watching who can meet you there. So if this speaks to you, if you've walked this path of always trying to hold everything together and you're finally ready to let go of that old role, leave a comment. Tell your story. You never know who else might need to hear it. And remember, you are not too much. You are not too late. You are not unlovable. You are just now learning to be loved the right way. And that love? It starts with you. And it's never, ever too late to claim it. Thank you for being here, beautiful soul. We're healing together.